Welcome to Arcadia Dyslexia Africa, the only bilingual channel for the fight against dyslexia in Africa. Misconceptions and Scientific Realities About Dyslexia from dyslexics.org. Misconception 1. In English-speaking nations, individuals with dyslexia represent a distinct, diagnosable subgroup within the wider population of people who face significant and ongoing struggles with reading accuracy and spelling. Scientific reality. For many years, dyslexia was commonly defined using the IQ discrepancy model, where reading abilities fell notably short of what one's IQ would suggest. However, this approach has long been debunked, and no universally accepted operational definition has replaced it. As a result, there is currently no scientifically validated method to determine who specifically fits into a separate category of poor decoders and spellers. Instead, anyone experiencing consistent and severe issues with decoding words and spelling can be accurately described as dyslexic. Put simply, dyslexia is a descriptive label for certain reading difficulties rather than a precise medical diagnosis. There's no agreed prevalence rate. We shouldn't treat dyslexia as though it's a clear-cut diagnosis for a clearly defined group. I use the term as a descriptor for word-level reading challenges. Dr. Louisa Moats. Misconception 2. This is the most widespread myth that people formerly identified as dyslexic have inherited a defect in brain development. Due to this supposed neurodevelopmentally abnormality, they lack conscious awareness of speech sounds, phonemic awareness, and the ability to manipulate them. It's believed they fail to follow the biologically expected developmental path of speech sound awareness, which typically progresses from entire sentences to words, syllables, rhymes, and finally, individual phonemes by the age of 7. Starting with phonics instruction, particularly phoneme-grapheme correspondences, before this age is sometimes thought to disrupt this natural progression and potentially harm both reading enjoyment and development, especially in children presumed to have faulty brain wiring, APPG on Dyslexia, 2021. Scientific reality. All infants naturally detect individual speech sounds within spoken language as part of early language acquisition, though they are not consciously aware of this ability. However, explicit phonemic awareness, the conscious recognition and manipulation of these individual sounds, does not emerge naturally through a biological process, but rather develops through learning an alphabetic writing system. This skill is most effectively built through high-quality phonics instruction, which involves associating letters with their corresponding sounds and applying this knowledge to reading and spelling. Rather than preceding reading, phonemic awareness develops as a result of learning to read alphabetic scripts. Siedenberg, Blog on the Phonemes in Phonemic Awareness, 2024. Research indicates that phoneme awareness typically doesn't develop until a significant level of letter sound knowledge is acquired. Macmillan, 2002. In countries using syllabic or diphonic writing systems, children typically do not gain explicit phonemic awareness through reading instruction. Studies highlight how the type of script and teaching methods significantly shape phonemic awareness development, confirming it's driven by environmental factors. You won't acquire this skill unless reading instruction requires it. McGuinness, 1998. Because English uses a complex alphabetic code, most children need extended, systematic phonics teaching to become proficient, accurate readers and spellers. Even with expert phonics instruction, children will progress at different rates for a range of reasons. One key factor is that the capacity to access the phoneme level of speech is influenced by genetics, existing along a natural continuum of ability. McGuinness, 1998. A child's lower position on this spectrum is difficult to detect at school entry since indicators like IQ, vocabulary, and rhyming ability are poor predictors. That's why it's critical to deliver systematic, high-quality phonics teaching to all children from the start, along with timely catch-up support for the estimated 5 to 9% who are slower to master decoding. Grant M., 2021. Early intervention within the first few weeks of reception is vital to prevent future difficulties in reading and spelling. DFE, 2023. For more, See primary school phonics. Keep up and catch up at dyslexics.org.uk. Importantly, those who struggle more with explicit phonemic awareness acquisition are not experiencing a brain defect. With the exception of a small percentage, around 2 to 3%, of children with profound learning disabilities, all children can learn to recognize and work with the individual sounds in English, provided they receive effective phonics teaching that includes graphemes. Phoneme analysis necessary for decoding is acquired much more rapidly in the context of print than in isolated oral tasks. McGuinness, 2006. Thus, plenty of studies reveal that children perform better on phonemic awareness tasks when these are linked to printed words. Exposure to print plays a significant role in making phonemes perceptible. Mark Siedenberg. Recommended reading, Diane McGuinness's Language Development and Learning to Read, 2005. See pages 21, The Origin of the Theory of Phonological Development, and 37, A Theory Becomes Dogma, for an insightful exploration of these issues. Misconception 3. The prevalence of dyslexia is estimated to be somewhere between 4% to 8% of the UK population, Rose, 2009, page 11, and up to 20% of the population in the USA, Shaywitz et al., 2021. Scientific reality. In the absence of a consistent and unequivocal diagnostic definition for dyslexia, all statements about prevalence remain speculative and value-driven rather than based on solid scientific evidence. As Rice and Brooks, 2004, observed, all statements about prevalence are guesses, they are value judgments, not scientific facts. The British Dyslexia Association's prevalence estimates of either 4% for severe dyslexia or 10%, including mild dyslexia, have been described as both theoretically and technically contentious. The only certainty is that in every English-speaking country, a significant proportion of the population experiences word decoding and spelling difficulties, varying from mild to severe. Misconception 4. Children diagnosed with specific learning difficulties consistent with dyslexia require a special type of intervention delivered exclusively by teachers with long, expensive training accredited by influential dyslexia lobby groups. Scientific reality. The UK Parliament's Science and Technology Committee, 2009, found no justification for differentiating instructional approaches for children diagnosed as dyslexic and those struggling to read for other reasons. The government should stop talking about specialist dyslexia teaching. Children diagnosed with dyslexia and children who struggle with reading for other reasons are taught how to read in exactly the same way. Elliott and Grigorenko, 2024, added, the notion that those diagnosed as dyslexic require a fundamentally different instructional approach than other struggling readers should be actively dispelled. Regardless of age, IQ, or diagnosis, individuals with severe decoding difficulties benefit most from systematic, high-quality phonics tutoring. Misconception 5. Dyslexics have additional difficulties such as poor short-term memory and rapid automatic naming, RAN, deficits, which confirm a diagnosis. Scientific reality. Many traits associated with dyslexia, such as poor memory or coordination, are soft signs, traits that appear in people both with and without reading difficulties and lack experimental verification, Rice and Brooks, 2004. As highlighted by several researchers, letter reversals, clumsiness, or poor memory occur commonly in the general population, Elliott, 2005. Dyslexia has been erroneously linked with traits like left-handedness or visual perceptual issues, Snowling, BDA. Sensitivity to rhyme is a weak predictor of reading skill, McGuinness, 1998, page 148. RAN tasks using digits and letters predict reading better than RAN with colors or objects, undermining the assumption that naming speed alone affects reading, McGuinness, 2005, Swanson et al., 2003. Additionally, Huttig et al., 2018, concluded that many supposed deficits are likely consequences of limited reading experience rather than inherent causes. Misconception 6. Dyslexia is a genetic disorder, supported by twin studies. Scientific reality. Critics argue that twin studies often conflate poor reading ability with a neurological syndrome without direct evidence, Kerr, AAF Form 0909. Moreover, Rutter and Ewell, 1975, found that reading difficulties varied regionally, undermining claims of a purely genetic basis. Mishak and Fletcher, 2020, propose moving away from rigid genetic explanations towards models based on risk, environmental factors, and instructional quality. Similarly, Rice and Brooks, 2004, noted that family history alone is an unreliable indicator of heritability.